Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Democratic Elections Commissioner of Onondaga County, and welcome to Commissioner in the Car. Today is Tuesday. It is January. I always forget the date when I do this. So January 22nd. How can I forget this date? January 22nd is my daughter's birthday. My daughter, Kimberly, down in warmer weather, down in Florida. So shout out to you, Kimberly. Love you, as always. But yes, today is Wednesday, January 22nd, and welcome to Commissioner in a Car. Sorry I was off last week, but this week I'm talking about why I was off last week. Last week we had our winter convention for the New York State Elections Commissioner Association, and so I was away at that, and I'm always thinking that I'm going to do a podcast update while I'm out at convention, but I never really get that done. So I should really learn my lesson on that. But here I am this week, and we're going to recap the NYSECA convention, things I learned and what it is. But let's talk about what the New York State Elections Commissioner Association is, because I don't think people realize that there are umbrella organizations that elections commissioners in New York fall under. Everybody knows that, well, not everybody knows, but people who listen to this podcast probably know that each county in New York, all 62 counties, have two elections commissioners, and one from either party, one Democrat, one Republican. And all of us and our deputies are part of the New York State Elections Commissioner Association. And this is a fraternal organization. It's been around for over 100 years. And it exists to help advocate for elections commissioners, but also to, it's our main training function. We have two conferences a year. One in January and one usually around August. The January one is always in Albany, so we just got back from that one. The August one moves around because we don't have to be in Albany. One of the reasons why our January one is always in Albany is because it's right. The state board is in Albany, and state board is a big part of our training that we have to do. And while the state board is an ally of the New York State Elections Commissioner Association, they're actually not members. They're not elections commissioners. There's a co-executive director, and while there are state board commissioners, and they are valued members of our valued allies of our association, they're not necessarily members, but they do provide a lot of the training, and well over half of the sessions are run by the New York State Board. So I draw the distinction only because I feel like being truthful, but that doesn't mean that they're not like deeply involved with our winter and our summer conferences, but especially so our winter conference, because that is where a lot of the training is done. We have new commissioners that come on board on January 1st, including in my office. Kevin Ryan, the Republican commissioner, is new. So we are very, we're very cognizant of that. And so January is very heavily focused on training. In fact, we have a new commissioner seminar on the first day. And that's solely dedicated to getting the new commissioners off the right foot, in knowing what the resources they have to call on and all of that. On our first day of the Elections Commissioner Association, that was Tuesday of last week, we also had our legislative meetings and our executive meetings. This is the main purpose of the, or at least the main political purpose of this winter convention, is we set our legislative agenda for the year. And sometime this weekend, I'll be putting that on our website. on my website, dustinsardi.com, and along with the Democratic Caucus legislative agenda, which is usually slightly different. So there are proposals that have received both Republican and Democratic commissioners' approvals, usually unanimously, and those proposals are then agreed on and posted on the NYSECA.com website. And every year there's some that the Republican caucus wants us to agree to that we say no, and there are some that the Democratic caucus wants the Republican caucus to agree to, and they say no. And of course, both caucuses are free to lobby, well, actually not lobby, have informational days and advocate for those positions to their individual legislative members. But the ones that have bipartisan support are the ones that get most of our attention. And I'll tell you, the big thing that got the bipartisan support this time was a request for $10 million from the New York State budget to support local county boards of elections. And this is meant as an annual thing, but the way the budget works is that we have to ask for it individually each year. So, but we're, as an association, getting away from specific requests for specific programs and trying to get to what's called aid to localities, which is a larger amount that has many different purposes that the local county boards can decide what they need, whether that's temporary worker for that year or upgrading equipment or so on and so forth. So that was our big bipartisan get together on having this $10 million request, and I hope to be traveling up to Albany on February 4th to advocate for that in the New York State budget. We also had a ton of training. The state board had sessions on election law and legislative updates, new not just new election laws that are going to affect, but court cases and how those court cases have shaped election law. And that's always a big update. They also talked about grants, some of the grants that were expiring, and the proper use of that money. They talked about other informational things. A big thing that we were kind of talking about is that automatic voter registration in New York is finally supposed to start. We've been told a target date of May. So we had a little discussion about how that's going to affect our boards, though not a great deal, because we're still waiting to get the official thing on that. We talked about the various functions when it came to different vendors with the boards. In fact, one of the things that we do are what's called user groups, where every piece of equipment has a vendor in New York. We don't have any equipment that is owned by New York, and that's including our voter registration system. And there's usually several different systems, or several different vendors for every piece of equipment, whether it's a voter registration system or a voting machine, the scanners that you actually put the ballots in, the absentee processing portion of that, as well, the vote by mail processing, which you don't see, but we use in the office when we get those mails back, and also electronic poll books and ballot printers that are at early voting and election day polling places. And all of those main commitments have 3 or 4 different vendors that serve New York State. So the different counties that are in those with those vendors all sit together in the room and have customized presentations from the vendors about what are new products that are coming on the line, but also the products that we already have, best ways to use that, upgrades that are coming, so on and so forth. In Onondaga County, we have No Ink, which is our electronic poll book and and poll print vendor, which is our ballot on demand system. We have Clear Ballot for our voting scanners and ballot marking devices that you see at the polling places, as well as our vote by mail processing. They're all in one there. We have NTS, which is our new voter registration system. Well, new again. When we switched from NextVote last year in the middle of the year, we went back to NTS, which we were at before. And those are our main vendors that we went to user groups for. We found out a lot of interesting things about new products that we're hoping that Onondaga County might take advantage of, but also training opportunities and efficiencies that are coming our way with all three of those, or all four of our vendors, even though one of them is a vendor for two things. So there's a lot coming our way in Onondaga County. Some of it I can't tell you about yet until we implement them, because they're not approved yet. But there was a lot of efficiencies that were brought up by our presidential year that we had last year, not just Onondaga County, but of course all of New York. And anytime you have a presidential year, you really stress test everything. So anything that, I don't want to say fail, but anything that had some issues last year, there was a lot of people working around the state to make everything better, including voter registration and all of that. So that's another big part of the NYSECA conference. We were very fortunate that Governor Hochul invited us up to the governor's mansion for a reception. This is the second year in a row that she did that. And she did that for Democrat and Republican elections commissioners. So it was a great event. She says she's going to do it again every year that she's there. And so I'm looking forward to it again next year. And then finally, we had a good amount of, of what we call county commissioner-led sessions, where the different counties take an informational session and show us what they do in terms of, like, one of them was preparedness, emergency preparedness. We had the Oneida County did a presentation on changing a polling place at the last minute because they had an active shooter at a polling place, or reported active shooter. Nobody was in danger, but they had to move a polling place on election day. I think it was on one of the primary days, but they had a great presentation about that. We had other presentations about record retention and dealing with various other internal stuff that we at the board do that maybe not the sexiest thing in the world, but are required by law and also provide good elections. So that's the other part that happens at these conventions. So a lot of people think, oh, we're just going up there and partying all day. No, it's a long day and it's exhausting. And usually by 6, 7 o'clock after dinner, we're exhausted, and sometimes people hang out and talk, but a lot of times people are just in their hotel rooms and getting ready for the next day. So I love these conventions. I think they're great. I had a session. We had a Q&A session, which was a general Ask the Commissioner section that my counterpart, John Quigley, who is the Ulster County Republican Commissioner, but he's also the Republican Caucus Chair, and myself as Democratic Caucus Chair, we led a Q&A session where there was just general questions that we answered. The State Board also did a Q&A session where general questions they answered. Those were very popular because as much as we can prepare for training, sometimes you just need these big questions. That different people have little things, but one person asks it, but there may be 10 other people in the room that want to know the answer to that. So those were some of the most lively and informative parts of the association winter conference. And then I also led my caucus. We have caucus meetings where the Democrats and Republicans meet alone. And I gave a caucus report, which didn't have much to say in it because you know what happens in the caucus stays in caucus. So that's all I really have about the NYSECA Winter Conference. Obviously, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk briefly about President Trump, and he is president again. He was sworn in. They had their inauguration, and he issued a lot of executive orders on the first day. I'm treating this term a little differently than I treated 2017, which was the first year after Donald Trump was elected in 2016. I think, we could get exhausted talking about every little thing, every little statement, every little executive order, all of that. It's obvious to me that he is going to push the envelope. It's going to be up to us to resist on certain things, and it's going to be up to the courts and institutions. But Republicans do have control of the House, do have control of the Senate, and there is no doubt that Donald Trump has pretty much unilateral control over the Republican Party. He's going to get a lot of his people through as cabinet nominees. He's going to issue a lot of executive orders. Whether they stand up is another thing. He's going to be able to probably do some things like tax cuts and fiscal things that they don't need to break the filibuster in the Senate for. So it'll be interesting to see what are the priorities. I think the one executive order that stands out to me that seems pretty on its face ridiculous is the one that is trying to eliminate birthright citizenry that exists in the 14th Amendment. They are citizens. They do have a right to vote. So that's why I'm kind of commenting on that a little bit, because it does have a voting angle here. Trying to stop birthright citizens keeps people from being able to legally register to vote. So that one, you've already seen 18 different Democratic attorney generals sue on that executive order within 24 hours. So, but he kind of hinted he was going to do it, so people were ready. So the suit has dropped, and I'm sure that will play out in the Supreme Court. And I hesitate to wonder what this Supreme Court will do. The Supreme Court has been had some surprise rulings, but this one seems pretty plain that the 14th Amendment says that if you are born in this country and subject to the rules of this country, that you are a citizen. And this has been tried before, but we'll see where this goes. But he did take, it was a peaceful inauguration, peaceful transfer of power. It's amazing that how you can achieve that when you aren't whining about it. The other most egregious thing that President Trump did that I actually think could hurt elections in the future is the pardoning of the 1,500 insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol 4 years ago on January 6, 2021. And it's important to note that these were pardons for the most part. They were not commutations of sentences. That means that in President Trump's view, that nothing wrong actually happened, that these were not guilty people. A commutation of a sentence would say, well, yes, you did wrong, but we feel the punishment was too extreme. These are pardons for the most part. And I gotta say, I'm not surprised. I'm not even disappointed, because I expected this. He said he was going to do it. He's been calling them the January 6 heroes. But these are people that tried to stop a free and fair election. They tried to stop the certification of the vote by storming our Capitol and putting people in harm's way, including cops, and causing the deaths of several people. This is wrong. And I don't care that, I said to myself, I'm going to be calm about it. I'm not calm about it. It's wrong. It's wrong that these people's sentence, that he's pardoned en masse, all of these people, many of whom I thought I saw well over 100 were proven to have engaged in physical violence that day. Not just occupied the Capitol, but actually hurt police officers. So, he has the right to pardon. I think pardons need to be reformed. Maybe this will start with that. We did see that President Biden, former President Biden now, preemptively pardoned his family and some of the January 6th committee members. I think somebody said, earlier in the day you have a president pardoning innocent people who've done nothing wrong, and later in the day you have a sitting president pardoning guilty people who absolutely did something wrong. So either way, it's probably we need to look at the pardon system. Giving carte blanche to one person to unilaterally decide to pardon is problematic, and it's kind of a slap in the face of the rule of law. But these particular pardons of the J6 insurrectionists, this is actually kind of a slap in the face of free and fair elections. They wanted to overturn the will of the people 4 years ago, and that they are now not subject to the penalties that anybody else would be subject to for engaging in violence and storming a public building and causing the deaths of several police officers. This is a problematic and dangerous thing for our country. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to move on. Next Wednesday, I will do another Commissioner in the Car. We will start to talk about the party. There's a few things going on. Probably I'll talk about the party enrollment deadline coming up on February 14th. And this week, I really hope I'm going to get back to doing my weekly walk. It's been tough. I've been out and traveling, and I got sick this last weekend. But also, there's another thing going on the weekends. The Bills, our Buffalo Bills, are in the playoffs. They're on the verge of going to the Super Bowl. So on Sunday, that's what I'll be doing for the most part. I'll be cheering on the Bills to beat Kansas City. So go Bills! And but maybe I'll be able to get a weekly walk done and put it out this weekend. Everything you can find this all on DustinZarni.com. And hopefully I will have up there our legislative priorities for the session, and and other things being a little bit more frequent now that the new year is here. So check it out, subscribe, you'll get an email anytime I post, and enjoy your day. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.